The Fox and the Goat. A fox had fallen into a well and had been casting about for a long time how he should get out again. When at length a goat came to the place, and wanting to drink, asked the fox whether the water was good, and if there was plenty of it. The fox, dissembling the real danger of his case, replied, "Come down, my friend. The water is so good that I cannot drink enough of it, and so abundant that it cannot be exhausted." Upon this, the goat, without any more ado, leaped in. When the fox, taking advantage of his friend's horns, as nimbly leaped out, and coolly remarked to the poor deluded goat, "If you had half as much brain as you have beard, you would have looked before you leaped." The Dog and the Shadow. A dog had stolen a piece of meat out of a butcher's shop and was crossing a river on its way home when he saw his own shadow reflected in the stream below. Thinking that it was another dog with another piece of meat, he resolved to make himself master of that also. But in snapping at the supposed treasure, he dropped the piece he was carrying, and so lost all. The Lion and the Mouse. A lion was sleeping in his den, when a mouse, not paying attention to where he was going, ran over the mighty beast's nose and awakened him. The lion clapped his paw upon the frightened little creature and was about to make an end of him, when the mouse cried out in his fear and begged the lion to spare one who had so unconsciously offended, and not to stain his honorable paws with so insignificant a prey. Now it happened not long time after that the lion, while ranging the woods for his prey, fell into the toils of some hunters, and finding himself entangled in their nets without hope of escape, set up a roar that filled the whole forest with its echo. The mouse, recognizing the voice of his former preserver, ran to the spot, and without more ado set to work to nibble the cords that bound the lion, and in a short time set the noble beast at liberty. The Shepherd Boy and the Wolf. A shepherd boy who tended his flock not far from a village used to amuse himself at times in crying out, "Wolf, wolf!" Twice or thrice his trick succeeded. The whole village came running out to his assistance, when all the return they got was to be laughed at from their pains. At last, one day the wolf came indeed. The boy cried out in earnest, but his neighbors, supposing him to be at his old sport, paid no heed to his cries, and the wolf devoured the sheep. The Hare and the Tortoise. A hare jeered at a tortoise for the slowness of his pace, but the tortoise laughed and said that he would run against her and beat her any day she would name. "Come on," said the hare, "you shall soon see what my feet are made of." So it was agreed that they should start at once. The tortoise went off jogging along without a moment stopping, at his usual steady pace. The hare, treating the whole matter very lightly, said to himself, "I'm so much faster than the tortoise. I think I'll take a nap. I can easily overtake him later and still win the race." Meanwhile the tortoise plodded on, and the hare, oversleeping herself, arrived at the goal only to see that the tortoise had got in before her. Slow and steady wins the race. The Lion and the Goat. On a summer's day, when everything was suffering from extreme heat, a lion and a goat came at the same time to quench their thirst at a small fountain. They at once fell to quarreling which should first drink of the water, till at length it seemed that each was determined to resist the other even to death. But, ceasing their strife for a moment, to recover breath, they saw a flock of vultures hovering over them, only waiting to pounce upon whichever of them should fall. Whereupon they instantly made up their quarrel, agreeing that it was far better for them both to become friends than to furnish food for the crows and vultures. The Fox and the Grapes. A hungry fox stole one day into a vineyard where many bunches of grapes hung ripe and ready for eating. But as luck would have it, they were fastened upon a tall trellis, just too high for Reynard to reach. He jumped and paused and jumped again in the attempt to get at them. But it was all in vain. At last he was fairly tired out, and thereupon he cried, "Take them who will, the grapes are sour." The Crow and the Pitcher. A crow, ready to die with thirst, flew with joy to a pitcher, which he saw at a distance. But when he came up to it, he found the water so low that all his stooping and straining, he was unable to reach it. Thereupon he tried to break the pitcher, then to overturn it, but his strength was not sufficient to do either. At last, seeing some small pebbles at hand, he dropped a great many of them, one by one, into the pitcher, and so raised the water to the brim and quenched his thirst. Hercules and the Waggoner. As a countryman was carelessly driving his wagon along a miry lane, his wheels stuck so deep in the clay that the horses came to a standstill. Upon this, the man, without making the least effort of his own, began to call upon Hercules to come and help him out of his trouble. But Hercules bade him lay his shoulder to the wheel, assuring him that heaven only aided those who endeavored to help themselves. The Goose with the Golden Eggs. A certain man had the good fortune to possess a goose that laid him a golden egg every day. But dissatisfied with so slow an income, and thinking to seize the whole treasure at once, he killed the goose, and cutting her open, found her, just what any other goose would be,